Now, Usagi-chan, grab your tiara and shout, Moon Tiara Boomerang.
What? Moon Tiara Boomerang! What?
Crumble, crumble, crumble.
Oh, you're kidding. She turned to sand and vanished? Well, I didn't find the legendary silver crystal, but I did find something most fascinating. That voice I heard.
My name is Tuxedo Mask. Sailor Moon. I'll certainly take note of you.
He's just like the famous thief Lupin. How wonderful.
When I think of Japanese manga and anime that were huge crossover successes in the United States, one of the premier examples for girls that I think of is Sailor Moon. And there's a good reason for that. It was hugely successful in both Japan and the United States, spawning multiple seasons of animes and sequel animes, live action films, adaptations, novels, you name it. Sailor Moon was huge. It was a real phenomenon. Her image is iconic, plastered all over the place and instantly recognizable for what it is. But why was Sailor Moon a crossover success? What made it so well adaptable across cultures? That's one of the things that I'll explore today in my examination of Sailor Moon. Hi, my name is Steven, but you might better know me by my superhero alter ego Spike Stonehand. And if you like what you watch in this video today, I urge you to please give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and share this with your friends. It is vital to succeed in the YouTube algorithm space through word of mouth, through the goodwill of the people around you. Additionally, you can get your name at the end of the video if you support me over on patreon.com/diviningcomics. And you can go read my writing over at spikestonehand.com, where I blog about new comics that are coming out, interesting articles and news items that I share from around the world of comics, and more. But without further ado, let us get into Sailor Moon Volume 1. Welcome to my channel, Divining Comics, where I explore the magic hidden between the panels of your favorite comics.
Boys and girls, your attention, please. Presenting a new exciting radio program featuring the thrilling adventures of an amazing and incredible personality.
This is the first video of Manga May. I know that's not how you pronounce manga, but it flows better in a poetic sense. So I'm not going to say Manga May. That's Manga May. And we're going to be looking at Sailor Moon, which is a shoujo manga, right? It is a manga that was intended primarily for young women. That was the target demographic when they were making this, and it was published in Kodansha's shoujo magazine. Right? One of the ways you can tell more or less who the target audience of a manga is who the main characters are and what their age are. This isn't a perfect technique by any means, but when you're reading something like Sailor Moon where all of the characters are 14-year-old girls, probably that's who the target demographic was, right? And this is part of a year-long series I'm doing in the Divining Comics Challenge, where I've picked 52 categories to expand my knowledge of the breadth and depths of comics as a global and historic art form. And manga is a large blind spot, so I'm all throughout this month going to be reading different manga, all with different target age demographic groups. I'll be reading shonen manga, josei manga, which is for adult women, and a seinen manga targeted at adult men, right? And all of this will help expand, if you join me in this journey, your knowledge of comics as a medium. Even things that you don't like, you'll gain an appreciation for the art form, what works and what doesn't work. So please join along. If you've read Sailor Moon before, you can comment down below with what your thoughts are on the manga. Maybe I've never seen the anime, so if you want to talk about the adaptation and how it differs or is similar to the manga, please let me know in the comments. but let's dig in. Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon, as the manga is properly titled, I read online was published at the same time as the anime adaptation, running only a few months behind the printed editions. I think that's an interesting frame for what we're reading today because so much of it feels readily designed for an anime adaptation, for a visual art form. The transformation sequences, right, when she goes from being normal Usagi to Sailor Moon, feels visual. She throws a thing in the air, shouts her name, and physically transforms into this kind of superhero form. Right? It's very reminiscent of the Super Sentai, kind of Power Ranger original stories, right, there in Japan, where the characters would transform. But instead of having these more mechanic robot suits, it's, they're in sailor outfits. It's very feminized and more looking like something that a woman might be interested in, as opposed to the kind of harsh mechanical extremes, right? I'm obviously talking in broad stereotypes here. Not all women prefer Sailor Moon to Power Rangers, but this, what their intention was, right? This is very clearly targeting it at women. So in this volume, in the beginning of the story, we meet Usagi, who is a 14-year-old girl, kind of socially unaware, not very good at school, always waking up late, struggling to do things, but she meets this strange cat who's got a moon crescent on his forehead, and finds out that he can talk, and he kind of inducts her into this grand mystery where they're trying to find the large special crystal that all of these undefined enemies are also after, because it contains so much energy that anyone who possesses it can do anything like blowing up the stars or using it for good or evil. And so Sailor Moon and her eventual allies are trying to find it before the enemies do, right? And in this volume, we meet several of the Sailor Moon Corps. I don't know, again, I'm not familiar with this, so excuse me for my lack of awareness on what they're called, but we get Sailor Mars, Sailor Mercury, and Sailor Jupiter in this volume. We also, of course, meet Tuxedo Mask, the seeming romantic interest for Sailor Moon, and he has his own mysterious motivations. We don't know if he's on the side of good, the side of evil, or somewhere in between, looking out for only his own self-interests. So I'm going to start with some of the things that I didn't enjoy about this first volume, and then maybe we can finish with some of the things I enjoyed a little bit more. First and foremost, I think that a story like this really, to me, relies on the characters being fun and being characters that you can enjoy spending time with. And I found the main character, Sailor Moon herself, at this stage of the journey to be kind of obnoxious. I know they're setting it up so that she can grow and mature and become less annoying. She can become more confident and believe in herself. But she's constantly crying and afraid of everything in a way that it didn't come off as endearing to me, but rather annoying. Overall, I think that kind of pervades throughout a lot of this. You can tell that the plots are written for children, right? I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that I'm no longer a child, and so I can kind of see through a lot of these simple mechanics and the storytelling techniques, and in a way that makes it feel uninteresting to me. I can see the ways that they're writing it for a visual adaptation. And that's especially painful here because I think one of the weak points of the art is the action sequences. The transformations aren't sold to me in a way that they would be watching an anime adaptation of this. The fight scenes are kind of busy and chaotic. The panel layouts are confusing. On the other hand, I do think that the art does a really good job at the romantic scenes, right? When every time Tuxedo Mask comes in, he's really sold as an interesting and intriguing romantic lead in both the visuals and the storytelling. I think that that's a tension I notice here in this volume as far as what the kind of story that they want to tell. That Naoko Takeuchi, the mangaka, she feels like is more interested in the romance elements of the story, and maybe she just is not up to the artistic level yet where she can really sell the more action, Super Sentai style combat, and maybe she gets better in later volumes. Or it's just something that she's less interested in. I don't know for sure, but it really was a bit frustrating seeing every kind of action sequence crammed together at the end of the book in a messy, kind of confusing page layout. And it was just not my favorite. So much of this is designed to be a fantasy for the target demographic 14-year-old girl, right? They might see themselves in the negative characteristics that Usagi has and fantasize about becoming Sailor Moon, this beautiful, powerful action hero, right? And then she makes these friends that are similarly outcasts, but are able to come together, right? The girl that's has no friends because she spends all her time studying for the college exams. A girl that is fiercely religious and protective of the traditional old ways and is unable to make a lot of friends, right? You have the new transfer student who's bigger than everybody else and super strong and comes off as maybe kind of boyish to some of the other people. I think that these archetypes do work in that level of fantasy of casting yourself into their roles and wanting to envision a life for yourself beyond the mundane, quotidian, and sometimes sad, normal, everyday existence that we're thrust into. And I think that relationship, that friendship between these girls, is the strongest point of this volume, and the thing that if I was to continue reading that I would be most interested in, especially the ways that it is very casually sapphic, right? Sailor Moon, the first time she meets Sailor Jupiter, is just in awe of how beautiful she is and literally has heart eyes over her. And it's just kind of not a big point. She's not ever really super interested even in pursuing a relationship with Sailor Jupiter. It's just a thing that she's the way she is, who she's comfortable in her own expressions of who she likes and thinks is beautiful and who she wants to be like and who she wants to be friends with, in a way that feels very real to me as somebody who knew a lot of young girls, right? And I think that seems accurate. Obviously, I haven't lived that experience. It just, from the outside, seems like the correct dynamic to have in this situation. Wrapping things up here, asking my usual questions of would I continue reading this? Unfortunately, right now, I think the answer is definitely no. There wasn't enough in this first volume that really sold me on the series. In fact, if anything, it sold me on the anime adaptation. I think that's maybe going to be a more interesting version of this story, just with the way that you can better express the visual flair of the transformations. You can get a little more distinction between all of these girls beyond kind of the mere tropes of their personalities through the voice acting. So I think that I'm not that interested in continuing reading the manga, but if you're somebody who loves the manga and who's read all of it, and if I'm like the meme of the miner who's giving up right before he strikes it big and hits the big motherload of diamonds, please let me know in the comments why I'm wrong. So who would I recommend this for? Definitely if you like those girl groups, that kind of 90s trope of the Spice Girls or Grant Morrison's penchant for having 5 women characters like the Stepford Cuckoos. If those kinds of characters are your thing, then I could see you getting a lot out of this. If you've watched the anime and are interested in more from maybe the direct mangaka's style, yeah, check this out. But other than that, I think that this is a manga that is maybe best for young women and not for adult men. I don't think that it has a lot that really speaks to me or my interests, and that's fine. Just means that I'm not going to be super interested in continuing reading it. Thank you for watching this video. Like I said at the beginning, if you would, give this a like, share it with a friend who you think is interested in hearing what I have to say about comics, and subscribe to my channel. But until next time, keep reading comics and never let the magic of comics die.
Old Enoch, he lived to be 365. When the Lord came and took him back to heaven alive, I saw the light from heaven shining all around. I saw the light come shining, I saw that light come down.